Today's guests are Liz and Leila Willingham. Liz formed Liz Lean PR in 1998 and successfully and entrepreneurially grew that business and continues to do so today. But in 2018, her daughter Leila joined the business, and therefore since the business has grown in a very entrepreneurial but also in a family business fashion. I was really keen to get Liz and Leila on the show to talk to them about how they've made that transition work, what it's like running a family business now, but also both individuals are very principled with a sense of community, and therefore I wanted to get them on the show and ask them all about their journey and their story so far. Welcome Liz, welcome Leila to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Really excited to have you on the podcast. Going to discuss all things kind of family business, entrepreneurial business, bringing the next generation into a business and what that means. I'm sure we'll touch on the world of PR as well during the course of our conversation. But Liz, we should kick off with perhaps some sort of background to why did you start the business and where did that passion come from?
Oh, a big question, but actually slightly disappointing in that I'd never had an ambition to have my own business. It really wasn't on my radar.
There was never that drive, that hunger.
No, I think growing up, lost my dad early. Money was kind of not a thing. I knew that it was my way or the highway to kind of get food on my table, put a roof over my head. So I think that's probably a little bit of a backseat driver. But I was working for Pool Pottery as their PR manager through a huge transition of the development with Dolphin Keys and lots of activity around that. And I was about to get married. I think my perspective was changing. I was finding the workplace really frustrating. I wasn't being able to do what I wanted to do. I couldn't make a difference where I really felt the need for the overall business to have a difference made around its communications, its internal morale and that sort of thing. So I quit. A month before I got married, I quit with no plan. And interestingly, my boss at the time, who I was starting to butt heads with a little bit, there was a lot of investment going on and change, and I was probably in the eye of the storm. And they weren't really listening to me, but the minute I quit, all of a sudden my advice was kind of, actually it was quite useful. They came to me and said, we know you've got aspirations to go freelance, so let's talk about it. And I thought, well, I'm glad you know that I had aspirations to go freelance because I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest. But now you've sown the seed, why not give it a shot? Okay. And I think I was in the right place at the right time. Yeah. The PR industry was maturing in the UK. I'd been a graduate out of uni for about a couple of years in a local agency. I was probably in the right place at the right time in terms of the skills not being prevalent everywhere. And I had a really good network through my Pool Pottery connections and I was starting to get involved in the chamber and other things. And so I decided to start working with them. And then I had another call from, I think, Pool Tourism saying, we've got our events program kicking off. Can you help with that? And then I had Tower Park contact me and say, actually, the management company interested in you helping us. And then it just went, brang. Strange. And I wasn't very good at saying no.
Yeah, as many of us in business are.
Just say yes and worry later.
Just say yes or work it out later. But it's quite interesting how many people are, and how many of us perhaps in business, serendipity does play a big part rather than this kind of pure focus.
Yep. And actually, I think you can dumb that muscle down of allowing serendipity and the universe to kind of make its call. As you mature, you kind of try and control that, which actually is silly because the good stuff can happen quite magically, actually. Yeah. And in my early career, that was really, really apparent. And I think you're right. I think serendipity took its place and things just fell together. And then I got very busy very quickly and thought, oh my gosh, I've now got a business which I never intended to have.
Yeah, and I suppose it went from just being freelance to having a business and other people and premises quite quickly.
I was actually pregnant with Leila relatively quickly after getting married, which is what we wanted. And I thought it would all grind to a halt, but I just carried on, and the incoming inquiries came in. And I think I remember my client phoning me 2 weeks after having Leila and saying, and I never said to any of my clients, I'm going off, I won't see you again. I kind of left them treading water a bit. And they said, right, are you back on the horse or not? Congratulations. But anyway, and I was like, at the time, I never claimed any maternity, whatever they call it, statutory, and I don't even know what it is. What is it? What do you have when you...
Statutory maternity
Yeah, that
pay
one.
type
You're the
thing.
accountant, you know.
Yeah. I was.
You were. You know your stuff in that domain. But yeah, I never even claimed it because I thought, what's the point? I'll be back writing press releases before you know it.
Yeah.
So Layla was literally sat on my lap as I was writing press releases all day long, thinking if she sleeps in, whilst I can work, that's great. And then didn't realise that meant she was awake all night.
Sorry about that.
No, and I suppose this could intervention for you. What was your earliest memory of your mum having her own business?
Oh, gosh, that's an interesting question. I remember The Office very clearly, and it's been through a lot of evolutions, and it's where I came home to after being born. So I kind of always grew up around it. But if I think about kind of what is my earliest picture, it's probably at an event of some kind, seeing her in what would have been the kind of 90s 2000 pinstripe two-piece suit, long curly hair, and just, I suppose, kind of just being there, probably tugging at the arm, come on, I want to go home now, but seeing her do her thing. Yeah,
and that impression of, that's my mum.
Yeah, and it was, I think it is really impressionable going to events and, yes, it's kind of big and scary seeing all these adults, but when everyone's coming up, oh, hi Liz, and, I always used to get a lovely reception of people meeting her daughter, and definitely I think I never felt, if I look back, I never feel anything different than pride. That's definitely the earliest association with the business.
Definitely.
I remember one moment rushing around trying to fit in school run, a 9:00 on the nail client meeting, leaving the house. This is when we left what is now our office. I knew where we were.
That's probably on the way to school.
And on the way to school, even maybe nursery actually, but because I remember you not being able to articulate, Mummy, you've left your laptop on the doorstep, as I was bundling everything in the car. So Jack had been born by then, but I think he was really tiny baby. So you were probably just 4, maybe. Yeah. And I was trying to get organised in the morning, and I literally left my laptop on the front doorstep, which probably then was about this big. And I remember Layla look at me going, no, go back and get it. I was like, oh, thank God you spotted that.
Always part of the business.
Always. I think I've always been PA to an extent, and then thank God you actually got a real one.
Brilliant. And turning the question on you, Liz, that running a business, having a young family, newly married, all of those circumstances, what effect do you think being your own business owner and building this successful business has had on you personally?
I think it's pros and cons. I think there's huge benefits and huge rewards, and then there are the downsides, but I think you feel them afterwards. I think at the time I felt nothing but reward, and I felt a kind of almost psychotic, sick joy when people used to say to me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. And I'd go, I don't know how I do it either, but I do. It's magic. In hindsight, that was very naive. But and a little bit self-destructing. But at the time, I think being able to be a mum, and that was first and foremost the most important thing. And I always said that if I saw any chinks in the armour with the kids affected by my workload, my work pressure, then it would stop. But I think they, really saw the day as, just normal and rewarding and fun. And I think the flexibility as a mum of having your own business is hugely important, and you then make your day, you dictate your day. And I'd always go over and above for clients and make sure that no balls were dropped. But, if I wanted to do the school run, I could. And I was very lucky. I had really good family support around me at the time when they were small. I had an amazing team that I got to the point within the first year that this isn't going to work with a young baby. I can't answer the phone and be a good mum at the same time. So that's when I started to recruit help, originally with work experience help, and then couldn't decide between 2 filtered, interviewed team members. So I took them both on, which was my first risk, really. And that turned out to be the best thing I could have done. When we got even busier, even quicker. And they were great. And Carol is still with me today.
Wow.
She's been in 22 years, 23 years. It's getting there. We're getting to the point where we're losing track.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And is that because you think you've created, part of that circumstance of you being a young mum and having a family and needing their support? Do you think part of the culture of Liz Lean has been
family focused? And I've always hoped to treat my team like extended family, like one of the family. And Carol's got great memories of early doors when she came to work for me. I'd be like, Carol, I'm really up against it. Can you just take Leila over to the beach and make sandcastles? And she jokes about it now, saying at the time she thinks back and goes, what a great job. She did the same PR degree as myself from Bournemouth, and had sort of followed a slightly different but similar path. And so she very much was hands-on. Whatever I needed to help the business succeed, they would muck in. And it's still like that now.
Brilliant.
It's still like that now.
Definitely. And so when did you first, grew up in and around the business, Leila? When did you first show any inkling that you would want to be involved and be employed and participate in this business?
I think it's always been something I wanted to do. I remember I must have been about 7 or 8, and people would say, what do you want to be when you're older? And it was either be in PR like my mum, and I probably didn't really know what it was at the time, or be a paramedic. Okay. And as I got older,
They're quite extreme.
Yeah, I know. They're both, very different. Like, it's not like, I want to go into marketing or PR. Yeah. It's paramedic or PR. As I got older, I realised there was more school involved in being a paramedic, and that put me off. Apparently, when I was probably 7, or so, I, on a school run, made a comment about not being able to wait to get my hands on the business. Okay. That's not a phrase I would use now.
The line is embedded.
No. That's not a phrase I'd use now. I can't wait
to get my hands on your business. There's so much more I would do with it.
I wish I could go back to 7-year-old me brain and actually remember what she wanted to do, because
it was.
I don't know.
I think, like we talk about on our podcast, a lot gets discussed around the dinner table and in the kitchen. And, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'd pick the kids up from school and I'd be like, this happened today and that happened today, and, whatever was the day. And I think Leila always wanted to contribute and always wanted to have an input on how things should be done in the business, however naive and innocent that was
different
at the time. But actually, she was intuitively right, and often it was around the personnel, the people, HR, all of that stuff.
And as I went through school, when I got to GCSE, and particularly at A-level, it was my business studies courses that really cemented that was the route I wanted to go down. At A-levels, I was writing essays that I thought were excellent about how DW Fitness could improve its business model. And then to think about going on, and I was finding it really frustrating that no one in the real world was seeing these my thoughts. So I concluded at that point that uni right there and then probably wasn't for me.
Academia wasn't your path.
And I always thought I can go back to it, but right now I want to go out and dabble in some real stuff. So I started applying for internships in PR, and they were unpaid at the time. And I landed one with a hairdressing brand, and it would have been 3 days in Surrey, 2 days in Covent Garden. And I remember phoning Mum going, the interview went really well, and there's a TK Maxx that's amazing just outside the office. Wow. And I got it, and I was super chuffed. And then I was going through the negotiations with them. And about the same time, I'd started doing some hours in the office over the summer holidays, extra pair of hands, the proper work this time, not like clearing out the stationery cupboard, which I'd done for my whole life up until that point. And so I was having these negotiations with a company that just had told me they'd been bought out by this investment firm in the Middle East, and they were going places. And I was going to work in the agency. This company absolutely had no ability or no want to pay me. And my manager at the time, who wasn't Liz, said to me, you do know, if you want to stay, we are looking for a junior, and I can chat with your mum. And I thought, oh, okay. That's not something I'd considered. I had this big hold up of what are people going to think if I just leave school and go and work with my mum? But I had to weigh it up based on the experience I was having and the value I could add and the value that I would also get at a really crucial time in my career. And I concluded that I loved the people I was working with. I loved the clients. I was actually being coached and guided, and I was actually able to live because I had the money to do it, and they wanted to pay me. So that's what it boiled down to. And I went on a not very extravagant, but wild 18-year-old girls' holiday to Zante, came back, and I think about a week later had my first official day. And I never looked back.
Never looked back since. So Liz, were you ever nervous at bringing Leila into the business at such a young age?
Do you know, I wasn't at all. I look back and think, no, I was never concerned. I think it was such an organic process, really. She'd been in and out of the office all her life. She'd got to know the team, she'd help out at events, she'd come in during the school holidays occasionally. So her presence in the office wasn't alien to me on any level. And then I was getting feedback from the team about how well she was doing. The clients were starting to get some awareness and, contact with her, and they were saying nothing but good things. And so it just felt a very natural process. And selfishly, we've always wanted to get the best resource we could find. And now we're in a different world where we can fish from a much bigger pond, and we do, and we don't mind where people are based, and we have people all over the place. But back then, just to fish from this immediate pond for good PR minds was always a bit of a challenge. So actually to have a homegrown, someone that I could trust and knew that intuitively she got it, then actually it was an extra pair of hands and bring it on.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant.
no, I never had any concern. It's more recently that I've thought, we're really into we're in it now. We're in it. And I have often said to Leila, are you sure? This is the only business and environment you've worked in straight out of school. Are you sure? When you get the humps in the road, the challenges, the real stressful moments, you really want this? And so we've had, I've pushed and poked the bear a bit. I think
you've done my job for me. I think you've asked my next question,
Sorry.
because I think Leila's got to respond to that. I mean, how do you now feel about that?
Yeah, so I think it'd be unfair to say that I started on day one and I have never questioned whether I could go anywhere else, whether I want to go anywhere else. I was not long 18 when I joined, and so probably around 20, I'd been there for 2 years, I started to have that thought of, is there more? Is there something else that I want? Is there something different? But probably around that time, or you took the summer off. So Liz was out of the business for the longest you've ever been out solidly. And she's always said when I was growing up that the business felt like a third child. And it was in that 6-8 week period where I really got what she meant by that I realised just being there, I was still very junior. I had, no idea what I was doing on the business side of things. But I had this intuitive sense of, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here, that I'm just watching and listening and just keeping an eye and just seeing everything tick over while she's not. Okay. And it was almost like being there when a babysitter's looking after the kids, being the older sister. It was like I had that same feeling how I would for my younger brother about the business, that I know I couldn't do it by myself and I wouldn't want to, but I had that sense of, I'm just glad that I'm seeing this keeping going, that everything's being done how we would want it to be done. And so that for me cemented, actually, I care so deeply about this business. I don't think I could go anywhere else, because it would be an entirely different experience, and I wouldn't want to a big part of my job fulfillment is because I care so much about the business and where it's come from, and not being able to have that, I wouldn't get that anywhere else. So that for me was a big moment. And then I think COVID also was a big moment, because I was terrified. You sat me down and said, if this really goes bad, then it's me and you writing press releases at the kitchen table. And I said, okay. Thought, she's being a bit dramatic. And actually,
it's mum again.
And actually, it never got anywhere near close to that. But that was another moment where we were felt under threat. And again, it was like that protectiveness, that care really came to the fore. And we worked more closely than we'd ever done during that time. We made big decisions for the business together, but also we would think about stuff independently, like when the furlough scheme was announced and whether we use that, can we not, how do we go about it, how do we communicate that to the team. We said, right, there's no point talking about it now, it's all new, let's just think about it for 24 hours independently. And we went for a walk on the beach, and it was like talking to a mirror, wasn't it? It was like what we thought was so aligned, and it went down so well with the team.
I think ultimately you made the final call on the tone and the approach of engaging with the team and updating them and making them feel reassured and managing how the team morale was, bearing in mind we're all working remotely. I think it was your final call on that you were like, and I was like, okay, let's go down that route, and it absolutely worked.
And there's nothing quite like seeing, in a time of real challenge, seeing a decision you've made resonate with people so well. I think for me that's been stressful, that's been tough, that was an awful moment, but what we decided was the right thing, and I think that cements for me why I'm doing it,
why you're still involved.
Yeah, exactly, and why I can see, I think in a way, COVID came at a very good time in my career, because it was like, here's a loads of stuff you couldn't have ever prepared for. This is the real business world. If you want to deal with it, this is how it's going to be. And it was a test. Also,
there was mentoring that made a big difference for you. We'd started working with Hall & Wood House, beloved, treasured client that they are, and you'd said to me, Anthony is so inspiring. I'd love him to be a mentor. And he emailed me, again, serendipity. He emailed me and gave me some update on another. And he said, P.S., I just want to let you know that with a family business perspective, Leila's very impressive in meetings. We really enjoy working with her. She's doing great. And I went back and I said, that's really heartwarming to hear that, especially from yourselves that are so embedded in family business. It's really nice feedback. I said, ironically, she just mentioned to me how you'd be an amazing mentor, but don't worry, I've managed her expectations. You're a busy guy. And he said, no, I'm qualified in this, and I do need to put the hours in to keep it up. And it's something I'm really passionate about. Be very happy to mentor her. When can we start?
Yeah.
And the effort he made over many, many months to coach Leila through a bit of a transition journey around, what do you want? And he gave you the bandwidth to think broader about, well, what do you really want? And is this really what you want?
And he kind of really sort of almost without saying it said, you can kind of have everything you want here. You just have to work with your mum to make it happen. That's the benefit of being in a family business, of having your own business, however that looks. You can achieve what you want to achieve, and you don't have to just tussle with this sense of, but will I regret going? Will I be fulfilled anywhere else? He was like, you can bring the two together. So for me, that was really important and definitely shaped my decision.
And you definitely sounds like you made this transition from, being a junior, being a member of the team, to wanting one day to own, direct, take the business forward.
Yeah, and I think it was between that summer where I was like, I want to stay here, I feel protective of this, and then COVID was the moment that we did have a frank conversation about how another recession, another pandemic, you can't do it, you don't want to do it alone. And I said, well, I think I'll be here then. Okay. And that was it. I think you
get a few recession years in over a long stretch, and you're like, okay, we're on that roller coaster again.
Here we go again.
How many more recessions have I got in me? No, I don't know. So to actually have that shared rather than it all being, and I think Leila joining on a more executive level and giving other senior members of the team more scope and responsibility, I have learned an incredible amount about what I should have done a long time ago.
And has that been part of the journey then, as because
100%.
to give yourself some more freedom, some more choice?
Yes.
It's not just Leila,
no.
It's that you've delegated more to the team, you've created a leadership team, I assume, and all of those.
And the structure is better, and the leadership team have helped shape that structure. I kind of think I just threw everything in it from day one and just ran on adrenaline and just reacted to things and didn't have the best, structure to work from. But as soon as you bring in more team members, you've got to have a much more linear process. And so the line management came in, and without it feeling too hierarchical, because I never liked that sort of vibe. And I don't think it is like that now, but there's a very clear structure. People know where they fit, where they've got the opportunities to grow. And that's been a huge benefit.
And we couldn't have discussed the transition between Liz and I without bolstering the team, because I can't magic 20 years in the industry or 20 years experience running a business into myself. I can do some things brilliantly, and I can guide the business in the way that I think Liz will have done if she could have duplicated herself 25 years over. But I never wanted the team to feel like there had been opportunities lost because I'd come in, and I wanted it to be very clear that I need them, and I really need them, so we have to create opportunities for them, for us all to take it forward. I can take the burden and the responsibility as, the secondary name above the door, but equally I think it's an evolution for everyone to come on and to help achieve things they want to.
A very quick break from this week's episode, which I hope you're enjoying. If you are enjoying, please remember, do help us and help yourself to make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and reviewing the episode. So that's it. Short interlude from me. Let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you've managed this transition, the introduction of you, Leila, as second generation family into the business and the transaction really well. But has there been any moment in that journey over the last sort of 6-7 years where you think we could have done that better? And I suppose that leads on to what lessons would you sort of inform others of if they were going to go on this journey?
I think because I started almost unexpectedly, I think that set us on a very good path, because I didn't come in with the ambition to be Liz's successor, and I think that set us in good stead to run the process well. It's evolved organically, and it's meant that everyone's come with us on that journey organically. I think there'd be a real danger in going into a family business assuming that you will one day have that top role, because I don't think you know it in yourself until you've got halfway there. And I don't think it's right by the team. I very much always wanted to be part of the team, one of the team, working alongside people. Never wanted to be seen at any different level, and I very much wanted to earn my stripes. I suppose the only thing that's possibly tripped me up is because I feel like I have to deliver to 100% all the time, because there's almost like this element of, and I don't think others in the team would necessarily share this view, but I feel like I've wanted to prove 110% that I should be there and that I can do what I'm doing, and I think that just puts extra pressure on. It's self-pressure that's exerted exactly. Because of what you think others may be thinking. And I think that
you had that trait anyway. Yes. Exam time, you'd beat yourself up for any opportunity you could. So
it just means you take the mistakes a bit harder. But I also think that it's not the worst discipline in the world to have.
No, definitely.
And I think you're actually the same. There are times now that maybe we talk more as peers about the things that we wish we'd done a bit differently, or the little things. You fixate on the small things as well, like I do, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where I get it from.
It's the detail. That's what makes us. Unfortunately, it's a bit of an occupational hazard. You're good at what you do because you're constantly looking for the skeletons in the closet. You're constantly looking for the detail. What have I missed? Where's the extra? What more could we be doing? And so you do constantly beat yourself up. You're never satisfied. You do. It makes you better at what you do, but it's a bit of a crippling trait to have.
So Leila's answered the question. If I turn to you, Liz, is there anything you would have done differently in the journey, or what hints and tips would you give somebody bringing the next generation in?
I knew instinctively many years ago that having someone more senior along my side would be helpful, that having all the decisions made when you're at the top of the pyramid and not sharing and having a sounding board for that is risky for the business and not very good for you as a human, and your mindset. And I looked at what would be involved with bringing a third party in to help me on that level. But when you're running a small business and, you know, our profitability is really finite. It's got lots of dynamics that are involved with that. And if you bring in a heavy hitting support, that leadership level, that's a big investment. Your fee income has got to go up significantly. So I was just adding pressure to myself by thinking about that role. And the way it's, had transitioned really organically with Leila and with our colleague Belinda, who's just incredible and is such an important part of our leadership triangle. It's happened very organically, but I wish I'd had that sounding board and support of a leadership team earlier on. It would have taken a lot of pressure off.
It's a bit chicken and egg, but I think if it had come about differently, that we would see we would have a plan for the next 25 years in the business. Maybe you would have bolstered the team earlier because you would have seen it.
But I also think that having more minds on the job, you know, the structure that we have now, I'm the first to say I'm not sure that I would have been good at creating that. You know, when you're a creative person, I found it hard to be very black and white with processes. I'm not particularly brilliant at process. Whereas I can see what I need, I can visualize what we need to do, but actually, appraisals. I mean, how many routes of appraisals did I go through? Trying different things. The poor team probably didn't know where on earth they were from one year to the next.
No, but I think there is a entrepreneurial founder thing here, because I think even if I look back on my journey, I tried so many times to put that management leadership team in and it didn't quite work. And it was because I was stepping in, I was being overbearing, I was doing all of the things, and that's because I was caring and I was passionate, is what I would say. Yeah. But I really would say it worked and it clicked when there was a purpose to doing it. And I knew we wanted to grow and I wanted to go and do the evolve thing. And that's when I truly engaged with it and I truly let go. And I think your story, Liz, is similar.
I'd agree.
Later coming in, next generation.
It is about your
there's a reason to do it, and therefore you commit to doing it, don't you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would.
Yeah. And the other thing I kind of hear, and it's possibly the lesson learned, is you obviously clearly had a great mentor in Anthony Woodhouse. Maybe if a family was going through this, you to have had a mentor, a sounding board who'd been through the other side of the journey, may have given you that kind of input.
Yeah, and over the years, I've talked to business coaches and life coaches, and tried to engage with that sort of mentoring thing. We did, all of the resources that I had access to here with mentoring, but you don't get it until you get it. You can be told something all day long. They used to say to me, you can work smarter. You don't have to do more hours to get more. And I'm like, no, I can't compute that.
I remember saying, and it used to wind me up, and I was like 15. You'd say, I just don't have time in the day to go to all my meetings and then do the work that results in those meetings. And I'd say, why don't you book a day in your diary, ask your PA to make sure you have one day no meetings, and you'd always say, I can't do that because clients come first. And then what have I just done? I thought about that and I thought, I'm in the same boat. I'm literally thinking I can't do the work that's coming from these meetings. So I've put in my diary now, no, avoiding external meetings on a Wednesday. Let's see how long it lasts. But I thought, I'm going to take my own advice from like a decade ago, because it used to wind me up that you didn't listen.
I mean,
and here we are, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But you are right, you never really, and it's probably why the business has been so successful, that you listened to your gut and you went with what was right. But I do think it's taken a lot for you to listen to other perspectives, perhaps.
Yeah. We're going to check in with you in 3 months' time later.
Yeah.
And see what's happening.
I know.
But the philosophy's right though, isn't it? That, and again, there's commonality here. It's that client first, team and client first. Client delight is the most important thing 100%. When you're running your own business, and it's a business services, B2B business. That's the
reward.
Yeah.
That's the reward. Having happy clients that feel like they're moving forward and you're helping them. That's the joy. Putting the invoices in at the end of the month is the bit that brokers the whole cogs, but it's that's the reward, and you go above and beyond and you look after people, play the long game, you get it back.
Yeah. And you do form those relationships, don't you? Like, the Woodhouse. all the Woodhouse relationship that enabled the mentoring to take place,
relationships,
and all of those kind of things.
And we work hard at that. And that's beyond the PR work. You know, that takes investment on a different level altogether.
And that, I would say, you know, going back to the earlier point about for all the stress and worry a business can bring, it is that feedback and from the team and from clients, and you think, oh, we did that. We enabled that. We've given that person the ability to thrive in this career, or you know, we've helped that client achieve that. And I do think, actually, I felt ownership for our business for a long time, but definitely what's grown for me in the last 7 years is feeling ownership of our clients, not in an egotistical way, but in a sense that I feel so connected to them and want them all to achieve so well. I will go to every level to achieve what they want and hopefully bring the team on that journey. And I think that life cycle of our work is so rewarding in itself that, yes, it can be draining at times, but you do see the reward, and that feeling is unbeatable, I think.
No, definitely. And I suppose it'd be nice to have this short conversation around the world of PR. I suppose my naivety maybe to say, you know, where does PR now fit in this modern world when social media plays a big part? Everybody's posting themselves about what's happening on LinkedIn and other channels. You know, so what is the future for PR and how do the two mix together?
Well, I think I've become a lot clearer about that because we've become clear about our proposition and what really rewards our clients. And sometimes the conversations we have around digital marketing and the ROI on that and accountability is much easier to measure and blah, blah, blah. We've upped our game and we've invested in tools that enable us to be a little bit more academic in our, accountability, in our measurement, but also coming at our approach is so defined now. It's what we've always done, but we never articulated it as well as we do now around the reputation management. And that is bottom line. AI can't manage reputation. It's such a broad church. The dynamics are really fluid. One thing can really change it, and you can't dictate that with AI or digital delivery and pay-per-click and whatever has its place. But we get clients who go, well, do you know what, we're going to put our spend over here. And then they come back within 3 or 4 months because they realise their brand awareness, their reputation, their need to be loved and have an emotional connection with their audiences just can't be delivered in that way. So I think that's become quite a clear demonstration for me that as an industry, we ain't going anywhere. But it's how we use those tools and enable the team to grow having those tools and knowing what's appropriate. And I think our connection with the Chartered Institute of PR now is much more robust than it ever used to be, thanks to our leadership approach and the structure in the business, that they give us really good guidelines about ethics and our CPD process is more robust. So I'm not worried about our future in our industry. I was for a little while, and I've seen all the transition.
I'd actually say, and I never would have expected it, but I actually think that when I joined the business 7 years ago, the industry felt a lot more turbulent then than it does now. I think there was probably a lot of settling that had to happen in the media world with social media, but publications have upped their game on their social presence, their online presence, and they now have a great offer there. And I think PR is a really important part of that customer journey, whatever sector you're in. Just talking about yourself on social media isn't enough to push.
Self-publicity thing hasn't got the same integrity, is it?
It's all about credibility. It's all about endorsement from the right people. Influence as a whole has changed, but we've changed with that, and so a lot of our work is with social influencers, traditional and modern, and micro influencers, macro. But I think what's really coming through now, and I think it's going to be a big part of our world in the next 5-10 years, is creating community. And I think PR has always done that because it taps into events, because it taps into what you read in your local newspaper or your chosen national newspaper. It taps into social. And I think, coming back to its core, public relations, community sits there. And I think we've always been community builders, and it's definitely having a resurgence.
Yeah, the demand for that, we hear it more and more and more. You know, the brands want to feel like they have a community that they can be a part of and communicate with, and there's integrity in their presence on the high street or wherever they trade. And that doesn't just happen by accident. You have to really curate that, really manage it, and be creative with it and engaging. And you know, we've proven that that's our strength. A definite strength.
Definitely. And have you had to broaden your offering and your services then as a result of technology?
No, I think,
Yes, but I suppose it's probably it's not like the industry's done a 360 or a 180 and changed completely. Media relations are still, you know, the core part of what we do, because that third party endorsement is just unbeatable. And as I say, I think publications and the traditional media have done a fantastic job at bringing their world along with us, but there has been lots of change, and probably
I think a lot of it is so organic, and a lot of it has happened during your 7 years. You know, the influencer work we do now, I mean, that totally new.
Yeah, that is.
You know, the software that we use, totally new.
I think the main thing that's probably changed, and the way the services might be the same or similar, but the speed has changed massively. Like the fact that you used to print out your press releases and stick your actual hard copy photos blows my mind.
And embargo them for 2 weeks time.
Yeah, and I was literally sticking caption labels on the back of photos on the hospital bed about 6 hours after delivering Leila.
Yeah, and now it's like I can refresh a page on my phone and I'll see like what someone posted about my client 20 seconds ago. That's the speed in which we're working, and there are drawbacks to that, but I think that's the biggest change. The industry,
It's interesting because all industries are being affected by all of these kind of technologies, but it's so refreshing to hear you both talk about those changes in such a positive way in terms of PR and the industry in which you're in.
But I think the family dynamic has enabled that. If I didn't have Leila Next Gen, really, you know, this generation is the full immersed adopters of social and technical advances. It's so intuitive for them that if I was here still on my own, having to navigate all of this new way of thinking and working, I'd have to rely so much more on team support to do that and have trust in them. And I have 100% trust in Leila because she's blood at the end of the day. That I don't know that I would be as positive about our future in the business world and in our industry if I didn't have the faith that we've got the skill and the mindset to keep transitioning us to where we need to be.
I would also say though that there are agencies that just do social influencers. There are agencies that just do content creation. We do a bit of all of that, and we bring it together with the reputation point underpinning. And I would say, I don't think I'd like to think if I'd gone out and done my own thing, I would have succeeded, but it wouldn't have been what we're doing, because I wouldn't be able to sit with a client and say with such conviction, your reputation is key. We know this because we've done it for 25 years. Yeah. I don't have to say I can't say I've done it for 25 years, but as an agency, we've taken clients through that journey. They've maintained their success. They've remained steady, and we know it's because that reputation underpins it all. And so, without the business, yes, my new thinking and digital native stuff plays a role, but I think they have to come together.
There's a blend there.
I wouldn't have gone out to set up my own PR agency on my own to do what we do, because I don't think that we would have had. I don't think that a new startup could have the same kudos and integrity that we bring, because we've weathered all of those storms.
I think it does give you that definite competitive advantage. But again, listening here, I'm thinking for all of us that are perhaps in, or running a business, that making sure that we do, it may not be family, but we have that younger generation in the business, which most of us probably have. But are we giving them a voice? Are we listening to them? Are we actually paying attention to what's happening? Because
it's something I'm very passionate about, and on the boards that I sit on, and I've always said, listen to our next gen. Don't underestimate their ability. They're really sharp, intuitive, much more sensible than we ever were at that stage. You know, they are strides ahead of us in many, many ways, and get them engaged early. You know, that's where, you know, when you first came in, we had the DigiPigs sort of project, which went down really well, because I just felt that employers really are not valuing the assets they've got under their noses with our young people. They're incredible.
But yeah, I think
they really
you
are.
have to build a way to work that's mutually respectful under that.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's so much, and more as I go in my career, I realise how much I have learned and have to learn. And I couldn't, you know, have the confidence to do the things that we do and take risks and try new things and invest in new technology if I didn't have the learnings from you. So I think, yes, I totally agree. But also, if I was then saying to those young people who are being given that opportunity, I'd say embrace it and really listen, because it's really important that you don't just think, I know everything, I know the best because I grew up in this world. We don't. We know lots, but it is I do honestly believe it's the jigsaw puzzle pieces going together that's where the magic happens.
Makes the difference. Yeah, no, definitely. And if you do reflect, Liz, and you could go back to 98 to your younger self, what hints, tips, lessons would you give yourself? And are they the same things that you now say to Leila?
All the stuff I knew at the time but didn't do anything about.
Okay. For example,
looking after myself.
Yeah.
Giving myself brain capacity, hobbies, being more active.
Yeah.
I tried to juggle all the balls, and I filled every minute of my day with work or family, and there was nothing in the mix for me. Managing the stress levels, that takes its toll after a while, and it can be a devastating outcome that you don't see coming.
Yeah. But
you kind of knew it was coming, but you thought, oh, that's all right, I'm immune. Yeah. No one is immune to the stress levels and the impact that after year on year on year of this full-on adrenaline-fueled day, your holiday's great, but when you've got a family with you, that's different stress. I'd always take a bit of work with me, but no, my view back is you have this is what I'm trying to impart to Leila. There's not a great deal I can teach her about our craft now. She's been immersed in quite a lot, and it's just experience and time and exposure to things now that's the learning, the honing of the learning.
It's like on the job training.
Yeah, but the self-management, the get to the gym, get in the sea, go for a walk, get the fresh air, get your trees, get your nature fix, that's the bit that I'm trying to instill in her, because that's for my selfish gain. I need to have longevity, and I want the business to go for another 25 years and be as successful, and give our team opportunities and bring new members of the team in and give them opportunities. That's not going to happen if Leila burns out in 10 years' time. No. And the burnout is what everyone should be mindful of and strive to avoid, and have your strategies to avoid.
And I think that we all know and have seen, and it's my personal journey as well, that burnout is real, isn't it?
100%.
Absolutely.
And the impact of it, you don't realise. You assume, can't be that bad. Oh yes, it is.
So one of the things I've always said to you, Liz, and is when you were president of the Dorset Chamber, I think one of the great things you did was to bring that to the forefront, and you created some initiatives that are still going to this day that get business owners and leaders to stop and think.
It's still not a talked about enough subject, though, that everyone who runs businesses is meant to be, made of iron and go and go and go and go without, they're becoming superhuman.
I think we've got a journey to go on that, though. Honestly, it's drilled into me, this stuff. But I am my mother's daughter, partly. And when you're ambitious and you love what you do, it's really hard to find where those lines are. And I think the mental health conversation has come on such a long way. I think we're probably only chipping at the surface about what that looks like for business leaders. And I think there has to become, it's going to take some time until we all can sit there and honestly say, yes, I feel 100% comfortable doing this for myself. Because actually it feels like every day is kind of for yourself.
The only thing I would say is that has improved, and is absolutely the right way, is that I would put the kids to bed when they actually would go to sleep. And then I would get back on my PC and I would be banging out more copy, following up, doing PR reports, whatever, until maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, then trying to wind my brain down to go to sleep, and then get up early to get the kids ready for school, pack lunches made, whatever, and be mentally prepared for 9 o'clock, hit the door in the office, run a team and be efficient and, you know, have the mental capacity to do a good job. What our team don't do, and we discourage them greatly from doing, is getting back on the horse in the evenings.
Well, we've and it's probably something that has evolved with our transition is I made it very clear I don't want us as leadership team emailing the team after 5:30. We can wait until tomorrow unless it's absolutely urgent, because it just creates an expectation, and it does take discipline, and I don't stick to it all the time.
I get told off.
But we have to keep each other in check, and I think it's about setting expectations, and that is something different. I don't think I can imagine a world where I'm writing stuff at 1 a.m, but that's because I also don't trust myself, and it would be absolute rubbish if I was writing it at that time.
You'd be amazed what you can pull out of the bag, actually.
Don't tempt me.
But I think there is a generational thing there, and it's a compliment, Leila, to being, there's a generation coming through that is so much more self-aware. Not just more aware of mental health and those kind of things. I think we see that, and that's obvious, but I think more self-aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how you play to those strengths.
And that's our future employment pool. So we have to respect that, because by default, because they're not going to work till 2 a.m, they just simply won't. They come to the workplace with better expectations and better self-care.
And it's been proven that as a business, financially, we have achieved the same and probably more without everyone working away till 1 a.m.
Well, not everyone, just to disclaim, no one apart from you worked until 1 a.m. In the whole 25 years, I'd like to think that's, if it's ever happened, it's been for a very extreme circumstance. You just carried way too much load. But it's been worthwhile.
Okay. So as we wrap up this conversation, it's been a great conversation, really enjoyed it. It's been really insightful. I always end with the same questions. So I'm going to ask you both. Leila, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay.
What's your definition of personal success?
Happiness. And actually I remember being on a family holiday once, and I was probably about 16, so I was probably thinking about where I'd like to go in the future, and I read a book, and I actually think it was probably some like entrepreneur book, which is so sad. And I've started this notebook, and I made a list of all the things that make me happy, and that what happiness means, and it's things like watching the sun go down, and I think it's the small moments. Being able to enjoy those is what success looks like, and that will always evolve, but happiness shouldn't. And what that looks like can evolve, but at the core of it, being happy.
Brilliant. What a brilliant answer. Liz, follow that.
I would concur, but also I would say family. I would pick the kids up from school having had a challenging day, and my line would be, you know I love you, don't you? And that would be the trigger that whatever had happened in the workplace today, whatever the results of my work, bottom line is the fact that I've been able to have 2 healthy, happy, amazing young people is absolutely the bottom line success for me. And from a selfish point of view, having some lived experience, which comes with good moments and bad moments and traumatic experiences, but having some lived experience, I think, I'm proud of that, and surviving those moments. But yeah, lots of reasons to look back and think, it was tough, but I'm glad in hindsight that it happened.
Well, it's great to hear that family is so important. You've now got a great family business. Wish you all the luck for the future, both of you. Thank you for being an amazing guests on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you so much.
If people do want to know a little bit more about Liz and Leila PR, a little more about the 2 of you, where can they go?
Well, you can visit our website or find us on socials, Liz Lean PR. Or if you want to hear more about the family business world, you can listen to our podcast, which is It Runs in the Family, and it's on all the major podcasting platforms.
Brilliant. It is a great podcast. The listeners do give it a listening to.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you. I really hope you've enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. So if you have enjoyed the episode and want to learn more about Evolve, then please do go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. There you can find out about how we do really help businesses start, grow and exit. And of course, what we'd really like you to do is to subscribe and review this podcast on whatever your favourite channel is. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and please join us in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast.